Welcome to another episode of Mexican in the Kitchen. In this video I'm making some blueberry salt. It's a bit of a long process and it's the first time I'm trying, so let's see how this experiment goes. I have a tray here with some baking paper. I'm using a whole package of coarse sea salt. It's 800 grams. If you have ever bought some sea salt, you might have noticed it's a bit moist. I'm laying it here on this tray and I'm going to let it be for about 1 or 2 days, just moving it around from time to time. The reason why I want to get rid of this moisture is because I want it to absorb as much of the flavor I'm going to add later. A couple of days have gone by and I can already feel it's way drier. I cannot feel that moisture I felt when I first put the salt in here, so I think we can start already using it. For this we only need 3 ingredients. I'm going to use the salt I already left drying, some water and some blueberries. We are using around the same of each ingredient. In this case it's 2.5 cups of each. I have a pot on the stove. It's on a 4 or 5 out of 6, so medium high fire. I added the water and waited for it to start boiling. And now I'm going to throw my blueberries in. This process is going to be quite quick. I'm just going to keep stirring and I will wait for them to boil for about 10 minutes. My blueberries have been boiling now for about 8 to 10 minutes. You will notice that the color has changed. You will see this bright red pinkish color. You will also notice that the smell of the berries is quite nice and it fills the whole apartment. Now we want to smash the berries and we want to extract all the flavor out of them. For this I'm using a metal strainer and I'm using also a piece of cheesecloth. You can get these from any store that sells fabric. It's quite common, it's safe to use in the kitchen and it's also quite handy. I'm placing this on top of another pot because I'm also taking these to the stove again. I'm going to pour my berries and water mix. Be very careful when you do this, it's still hot, and also try not to have any fancy tablecloth on your working area because this is quite strong colored and it might make some nasty stains. Berries should be quite soft now that they have been boiling for a while, so I'm just going to take a spoon and I'm going to crush everything. You will notice this is quite easy, and as you press you will hear how some liquid comes out, so that's what we want to extract as much of the liquid as we can. As you can see, after a while this has become a paste. Later you could add some sugar and maybe use it with your porridge or in some cookies or whatever you want. But for now I'm going to continue and I'm going to close this cloth and just try to keep squeezing and keep trying to get as much of the liquid as we can. You can see there's still this bag and I'm going to press it a bit with the spoon and you will see there's still some liquid coming. That liquid is just the concentrated flavor of the berries, so we want to get as much of that as we can. After I have taken all the liquid out, I'm just going to put it back on the stove. I will keep boiling it on a medium fire and just keep stirring it from time to time, make sure it doesn't get stuck to the bottom of the pot. We want to reduce it into a thick syrup that will coat our salt. After a while boiling, now it has reduced quite a lot, and the way to know if it's ready is I'm going to use a spoon, and you can tell that the spoon has been coated now. It's quite thick and the coating just stays there, so I think it's ready now. I took my pot off the stove now and I will slowly add the salt. I want to add half of it at first, stir, make sure it mixes nicely and then keep adding just in case my syrup is a bit too thick. It's always good to make sure that the salt is not too much. In this case I think I have a bit too much syrup, so I'm just going to add all the salt. I will just mix everything. I will keep stirring for a while, just make sure your syrup is coating every grain of salt. In this case, I think I could have reduced the syrup a bit more. So I'm going to take a spoon and I'm going to try to take as much salt I can without taking as much liquid. I have an oven tray here with some baking paper. I'm going to take my salt and try to spread it as much as I can. The more you spread it, the faster it will dry. So if you have more trays and more space, it's better to make a very thin layer and just spread it nicely. This is the result. I have 2 trays and I'm going to let them dry for about 5 days. If you grab one of those crystals, you will notice that your fingers get this coloring from the blueberries, and of course once they are dry that shouldn't happen. This is a day later. As you can see, they start to dry. You will see that some of them have stuck together, so I'm just going to move them a bit, make sure I try to separate all those that have clogged together. You will notice the paper has a lot of coloring because all the liquid has gone down. This is still a bit too wet for you to use your hands to separate everything, but if you start separating everything, you can use a spoon, you can use your hands if you want. The salt will dry faster and you will need way less days. This is 3 days in. You can tell everything is quite dry already. I had to scrape everything with a spoon. After a while I realized it's dry enough I could use my hands. So I just basically tried to separate everything using my hands. I also changed the baking paper. I needed to use the spoon to scrape everything from it. This is the end result after 6 days. You can see the color is quite nice. Everything is separated. The crystals are not forming this big agglomeration. There's of course different ways you could use this salt. I'm going to use a blender with a coffee grinder attachment. With this you can decide what's the texture you want for your salt. I took a handful of my salt and I'm going to turn it into powder. This is the end result. On the right you can see the crystals before I put them into the blender. On the left side you can see the powder I got. You can see now my salt has this pink, purplish, really beautiful color. It's been now over a week since I started this whole process and I'm really happy with the results. It was quite a nice project. It's nice to see how something starts getting better and better with time. And in this case, now as you could see, I made this powder. I ground all this salt. This is perfect. The color is really nice. I think I would use this especially for putting it to the rim of your glass if you're making some nice cocktail, kind of like a margarita that needs some salt. And of course the color is quite nice. This is pink purplish. I think this would go really nice with it. And then you have the crystals, and the crystals look quite nice. I think the color is really pretty. You can, personally I would add this into some salt grinder, some nice maybe metal and glass grinder that looks really nice. Then you have the crystals in there with some coloring, kind of in the same way that you would have Himalayan salt, these pink crystals. I think that would look really nice. I tried this with some cheese slice just to taste the blueberry, have a really mild taste. It's really nice. You can tell the blueberry taste is there. It's something quite subtle, so I would go and use these with dishes that have these mild, subtle tastes that you can maybe enhance a bit, give this small blueberry taste. But I think the nicest part of this is the color, the show. It looks really pretty, it tastes nice, and of course this would make a really nice gift. I made a lot of it, so I think I could put it into some nice glass container, make a nice tag for it, and you have a great Christmas gift for someone who just moved into a new house. At least here in Finland it's very common that you give salt and bread, so I think this will be the perfect gift for that kind of situation. I hope you liked the video. I hope you try it at home, come up with some other flavors. I saw some guy that makes this with some red wine reduction. I think that would work also quite nice, this strong flavor. Try it at home, press like, subscribe, activate the bell. Maybe tell me in the comments what other flavors would you use, what other flavors maybe you have already used, and see you in the next one.